Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online VGC 17 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Of course, we are still using Gavin Michael's winning team from San Jose Regionals. Thanks to him for allowing me to use it. If you guys want to give him a follow on Twitter, check it out in the description below. There is also a paste bin of the team in exportable form, so you can try it on Showdown or build it yourself. But yeah, it's been a pretty fun ride with the team. We're actually going to find Pride from Texas right away with a rating of 1847 to kick off this episode. As always, if you guys enjoy Road to Ranked, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like on the video to show your support. That would really mean a lot to me. My opponent here is rocking a pretty hyper-offensive team of Garchomp. I shouldn't say solely hyper-offensive because a lot of it is actually pretty bulky, but Garchomp, Tapu Koko, Alolan Ninetales, Celesteela, Gastrodon, and Arcanine. So, let's see. Gastrodon's definitely an interesting Pokemon, and that's the first one that we've seen. So as a result, because I do see the Gastrodon, I'm probably going to want to bring the Drampa. The Drampa is a pretty solid matchup here. Fire Blast able to hit Celesteela and Ninetales, Draco Meteor for the Arcanine and the Garchomp, and then Energy Ball specifically for Gastrodon. So that's something to definitely consider. Figuring out what to lead with is always kind of the most important thing. I mean, Porygon 2 is kind of a no-brainer here, especially with so many Pokemon like gonna get hit for neutral damage on my opponent's team. By it, download boost would be really great, but we'll see about that. So Porygon 2. I'm not gonna bring Mimikyu here. I think like so I did play a couple of games off screen actually to get acclimated with the team, and I think like Mimikyu you mainly want to bring when they have a Lele. Otherwise you want to go kind of full hyper offensive. So I mean, Hari P2 is kind of my go-to, and I don't see too much reason to deviate from that. Although Araquanid would be kind of good too. Okay, Drampa, and so I'm actually not bringing Magnezone here. That could be a mistake. I mean, my opponent does have a Celesteela and a Alolan Ninetales, but I kind of wanted the Araquanid a little bit more. One, it has the Water Z move, so it can just kind of nuke a Pokemon, and two, Arcanine on my opponent's team is something I'm a little bit concerned about, so Araquanid gives me a way to check that directly. So we see Koko Garchomp as a lead, which I'm okay with. The only fear is in yesterday's episode we saw that Garchomp can run Dragon Tail as a way to counter Trick Room. But otherwise, I can just go kind of for the fake out Trick Room play turn 1. So Electric Current's going to be up. Let's see what boost I get from download. Special attack, awesome. So Koko could run Taunt, Garchomp could run Dragon Tail. Both are ways to shut down Trick Room. Taunt's a little bit more likely though. I'm going to go for the fake out onto Koko in the Trick Room. It'd be really good if I can get this off. No switch outs or anything, so I do break a potential Sash on Koko there too. That does a good amount of damage actually. It's not going to be the Dragon Tail, instead it's going to be Garchomp's Z move, which I'm okay with. I know Porygon 2 definitely can take this, and Hariyama actually has a pretty good solid chance of surviving, I believe, as well. Hariyama's just really bulky, so overall I would say this turn is a positive for me. So Tectonic Rage is going to come out, is going to target down that Hariyama. Let's see how much damage this does. I would assume around 75 to 80%, but who knows? Could be like admin. A little bit more there actually, but I do manage to hang on, and Trick Room does go up successfully, which is good. So that's promising. Flame Orb, of course, going to come up. So I could feint Ice Beam here. I'm not as worried about Garchomp this time around because I don't have the Magnezone. And I kind of actually want to double up on Koko. I could also just Ice Beam Garchomp in close combat Koko, though. And you know what? I'm going to do that just to get as much damage off as possible. Like, Garchomp switches out, that's fine. Into Arcanine, okay. So, good Intimidate, but this is okay because I'll still do a decent amount of damage with close combat. Like, Hariyama with the Flame Orb is just so offensive. And yeah, we don't see a Protect there, which is also good. Yep, brings it under 50%, which is nice. I kind of wish I doubled on that slot now. And Garchomp switching out is kind of obvious, but it doesn't look like my opponent has too many options for Trick Room in general. That Ice Beam still does a pretty decent amount. We actually see Dazzling Gleam come out. Okay, that's fine with me. Yeah, no problem. And it's only one turn to Trick Room down, which is also good. Koko's Life Orb as well. Okay, so I'm actually going to just bring in Drampa, because I can safely Draco Meteor the Arcanine slot and Thunderbolt the Tapu Koko slot. I think, like, the good thing about this game right now, what I'm feeling, is that I have a pretty good chance of even getting up Trick Room a second time. So I'm just going to Draco and Thunderbolt, yeah. He might not expect, or he could switch out in a Gastrodon, but that's fine. If a Gastrodon switching does come in, I can just Energy Ball the next turn. Coco protects, that's fine. But that means Arcanine's probably not protecting, which is good. So I do connect with the Draco Meteor. This should just be a one-shot. I mean, on Life Orb. And Arcanine didn't take that Ice Beam very well, so I'm guessing this is an offensive Arcanine. And we do just pick up the one-hit KO. Arcanine, not really a major threat, but offensive Arcanines with close combat still are kind of concerning. And we've actually lost to... The 2 times we've lost with this team so far, both of them, I believe, had an Arcanine in the team. So, I mean, it's nice to just get that out of the way. Other good thing is we still have 2 turns of Trick Room left. And Gastrodon is the last Pokemon, so that's also pretty good to see. Because I do have the Energy Ball. The question is whether I want to switch out right now. I mean, he can't really hit for too hard, so I think I'm actually just going to Ice Beam into Coco and Energy Ball. Yeah, I don't want to switch out right now. And Coco switches out, which is perfect. That's why I went for the Ice Beam, because if I Thunderbolt into like Garchomp slot, that's really bad, but Ice Beam could knock out Coco already with the download boost, and I just get the Energy Ball. So this isn't going to knock it out, obviously, especially with the Draco Meteor decrease, but it still does like 90%. Oh my goodness. Proccing the berry, sorry, not Rindo Berry. I would guess like one of the 50%. Nope, it's actually just Citrus. Just gonna Ice Beam, that's fine. Should've knocked me out. Hopefully no freeze. Okay, and I get the Ice Beam off successfully against Garchomp. So I feel pretty good about my position regardless right now. Ice Beam actually just knocks out the Garchomp. Wow, that firepower though. So really, really good turn there for me, and I feel very confident about my position right now, because Porygon 2, like, my opponent just cannot do very much damage against it in general, and it hasn't taken any damage, really, at this point. So I'm actually just going to go for a safe Ice Beam into the Coco slot. Actually, I should Thunderbolt. I think Thunderbolt does more with Electric Terrain. And I'm going to switch Drampa out into Araquanid. Yeah, because I want to potentially conserve Drampa in case I can get another Trick Room up. And Drampa outspeeds Gastrodon under Trick Room, as we just saw. So, Trick Room's ending this turn, I believe, but that's fine. He actually doesn't even protect, so just a Scald coming out. Target down Porygon 2, that's fine with me. Even crits me there, but Porygon 2 does get the Thunderbolt off successfully. Yep, and that's a clean knockout. Excellent. So this game played out pretty much exactly how this team probably should play out, and how the matchup should go against teams that don't have that many great Trick Room answers. That's why Energy Ball Drampa is a big deal, because if I brought Magnezone, I actually didn't have any great ways to hit that Gastrodon, and you saw how much damage Energy Ball did even at -2, which was kind of crazy. So now I can just Leech Life and Ice Beam for the win. So really clean game there. I'm very content about how it played out. And yeah, like, the thing is, when Porygon gets that download boost, it just does so much more damage, and we saw it literally just nuke the Garchomp. Another Skull's gonna come out, but my opponent just didn't have that many great answers to Porygon 2, honestly, and so Leech Life from Araquanid is gonna come out, is gonna pick up the knockout on Gastrodon, and we will be able to pick up a win in the first game in today's episode. Yeah, I think, like, you know, Gavin's team is kind of designed to sweep through a lot of the common teams that we've seen in the metagame. You know, those teams that just kind of run, like, Tapu Koko, Garchomp. I would say those with Alolan Marowak can be a little bit bothersome, but that's why you do have Araquanid. I mean, Drampa and Araquanid both outspeed and knock it out in one hit. And Hariyama with knockoff with the Flame Orb can also just knock it out if it's not, you know, Intimidate or anything. So that game played out pretty well. It was basically simple setup of getting Trick Room up and kind of going from there. And I would say, yeah, I mean, the game worked out well, because I think one lesson that I learned from, you know, a couple of the losses that we've had. I mean, we've only had 5 games on Road to Rank. Like I mentioned, I did play a couple of games off screen just to get acclimated with the team a little bit better. But there are a lot of important lessons to learn, and one of it is just you really got to utilize each Trick Room really well. This next matchup's going to be super interesting because it's kind of a hybrid Trick Room team, and 5 of the 16 Pokemon are from Wolfie Glick's 13th place international team over in London. So Tapu Bulu, Politoed, Salamence, Magnezone, Porygon 2, and the Torkoal. So one cool thing is that Drampa actually runs Cloud9, and so I can make the weather, you know, user have a bit more difficult of a time. And Porygon 2 actually just puts in a lot of work here. My opponent doesn't have a way to seemingly hit it for super effective damage other than maybe a superpower from Bulu, but I can take that relatively well. Ice Beams do threaten Salamence and Bulu offensively, and Thunderbolt threatens Porygon 2. Setting up Trick Room will be interesting, but for the most part, my Pokemon are still slower. Torkoal is obviously a little bit of a concern, but with Drampa and Araquanid, like, I think it'll be okay. Hariyama is a tempting pick here, though. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Salamence lead here. My Magnezone could trap his Magnezone in, which would be interesting. I might lead Porygon Magnezone, actually, because he doesn't have great ways to hit Magnezone, and Magnezone's a pretty good offensive Pokemon in general against my opponent's team. I think I'm going to want Drampa here. And Araquanid is a little bit tempting, but it's physically based. It actually doesn't hit that hard at all, so I'm going to go with Hariyama. So I normally bring a Araquanid when I've been using this team, but Hariyama makes a lot more sense when there's a Magnezone and a Porygon 2 on my opponent's team, and it can knock off as well. So this is a modified version, obviously, of Wolf's team. Could be completely different, and I actually don't remember the full details on Wolf's team in terms of movesets and items and whatnot, but it's a really strong composition, like the Bulu, Politoed. I know like Wolf had Salamence with the Z move, but I feel okay about my lead here regardless of what can come out. So P2 Magnezone and Porygon 2 and Bulu on my opponent's side. I don't know how fast that Bulu is, and it could have superpower. Those are my two concerns right now. So Grassy Surge coming out. Download. Special attack on his end. His Porygon 2 also goes first, so, and we both get special attack boost, so that's nice. And I really have no idea how fast the Bulu is. I know Magnezone's modest. He could have a superpower as well. You know, I really want to just double up with an Ice Beam and a Flash Cannon, just to get as much damage off as possible turn 1. I'm not particularly in the mood to set up Trick Room, and I have more offensive firepower right now, I think. I don't think Wolf's Bulu also had superpower. It was like a more defensive set with Leech Seed, so if that's the case, then a superpower might not even knock out Magnezone. Which is why I wanted to lead with Magnezone. Is this a Grassy Z move, or... I think that's Bloom Doom, right? I was not anticipating that. Pretty sure, yeah, this should be Bloom Doom. Let's see who it targets, because it could knock out Magnezone, quite frankly. I think it'll be going to Porygon, though. Yeah, okay. I don't think this will knock me out, but it'll do a ton of damage. Yeah, I survive. But, ooh, the double up, actually. That might knock me out with the download boost. Yeah. Yikes. There was nothing I could have done to really prevent that double target, but Flash Cannon should knock out Blue here. Yeah, so we trade 1 for 1, and I think I don't mind that trade too much. Losing Porygon 2 is a bummer against my opponent's team because it's so darn good. I'm going to bring in Hariyama right now because it gives me a turn to Fake Out. I'm a little bit worried about the Porygon 2 right now, though, and Torkoal actually comes out. So that's actually not too bad to see. Yeah. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to Fake Out the Torkoal. Sorry. Ooh, actually, who should I Fake Out? I'm gonna Fake Out Torkoal, yeah, because I can then bring in... but then he could set up Trick Room. I think if you're my opponent, you Trick Room and go for a Fire-type attack. Like maybe an Eruption. And I don't have Protect with Hariyama. But I will outspeed, so I think I'm actually going to Fake Out Torkoal to prevent damage and bring in Drampa. Drampa with Cloud9, like Draco Meteor actually might just knock out Torkoal outright. That was a really good turn 1 from my opponent, though. I wasn't expecting Bloom Doom coming out. So, yep. Torkoal actually protects, wow. So, my opponent probably not knowing I'm Spexed, wanting to just prevent damage. So, Fake Out's gonna go into it. Let's see what Porygon 2 goes for. Does this set up Trick Room? Yeah, he does. Now, the good thing is, I outspeed. And Eruption shouldn't knock me out because of the weather, and he protected last turn, so I get a pretty safe opportunity to just close combat Porygon and Draco Meteor the Torkoal. Now the issue is Porygon 2 could survive this turn, and he could double up in a Hariyama, so I could be at -2 special attack after this turn. He just does go for the Eruption, yeah, but I can't switch out, obviously. But that's not going to knock Hari out. Yeah, take that D-Swell. Draco Meteor connects, that's really good. I hope this knocks out. Even if not, he's obviously going to have significantly reduced eruption damage. Excellent, it picks up the KO. But the question is, did Porygon 2 target the Hariyama slot? Because I think you should target that slot, and if you do, then I'm in some trouble still because I'm at -2 special attack. Close combat should do a ton of damage, though. Yeah. Whoa! Not even a critical hit. You know, I wasn't expecting the knockout there because it's Porygon 2, and that's literally one of the, if not the bulkiest Pokemon in the format, but I guess Hariyama with max attack pretty much and Guts boosted close combat can actually pick up the knockout. That is incredible. Depending on what the last Pokemon is, I think I still put myself in a pretty good winning position, but that is definitely appreciated. And it was actually Magnezone, so I think I would have won this regardless, because what happens is if my opponent knocks out Hariyama, then I get the free switch him back into my Magnezone, and I actually have Fire Blast on Drampa, which is still a 2-hit KO on Magnezone under the sun, but now it's a pretty clean. I actually do want to find out the items. I'm just going to knock off and Fire Blast. No, screw it. Close combat just outright wins the game. Might as well not risk anything. Fire Blast, you know, could still just be a knockout outright. Yeah, my opponent's gonna forfeit. Wow. So, that played out pretty darn well, I would say. Very offensive given the matchup, though. Like, I thought, you know, against such a team, it would be a long, drawn-out game. But, you know, we traded knockouts instantly. The Cloud9 was very, very crucial because it decreased the output, the damage output of the Eruption. And it meant that Hariyama could survive. Maybe Hariyama could take that anyway because it's pretty darn bulky, but Drampa was definitely the right call here. And I was like contemplating a Araquanid, but I was like, no, that doesn't make much sense. I'm really content about the Pokemon choice. And as a result, we probably do have time for a third game, which is nice. And we are slowly getting our way back into the 1900s, so making our way uptown, or downtown. But yeah, it's been a pretty nutty episode today, honestly. Like, the other episodes we've had with this game is just like super, you know, slow, long, drawn-out games. But these were just like, you know, execute the setup properly and just kind of go from there. So, pretty happy about how that's played out. But let's see if we can get a third win in today's episode as well. I think, overall, you know, reflecting on the plays that I made, because of the team matchups, I'm pretty content with. I think the Pokemon choice both games definitely were pretty solid, and in terms of moves that I could have made better, I think like the tricky thing with using a team such as this is it's always really frustrating if you ever waste a turn of Trick Room. Like if we look at, for example, the second game of the first episode with this team, I just like faked out an Ice Beam into Garchomp instead of fainting an Ice Beam, and those plays are just incredibly frustrating when you don't call them correctly because every turn of Trick Room matters so much, especially when you use such a hardcore Trick Room team such as this one. So it makes you really think twice, and there's a lot to reflect on. But I would say the two games today, it was like I had a pretty decent team matchup and executed my strategy properly. So I'm glad about that. I'm going to find a 1644 rated opponent from Florida for our third opponent of the day. Rocking a team kind of similar to the first one: P2, Garchomp, Arcanine, Tapu Koko, Celesteela, and Gastrodon. So immediately, you know, I'm thinking, okay, I probably want the Drampa again because that was so crucial in that first game. The difference is my opponent does have a Porygon 2 on his team this time around, so I'm going to have to think twice about, for example, bringing a Araquanid. I think Hariyama could actually be a decent call. So I'm definitely leading Porygon 2 again, and Porygon 2 is just such a safe Pokemon to lead because very few Pokemon can knock it out, especially on the first turn. Like, you know, the only one I can really think of is maybe like the Pheromosa, like high jump kick or something, boosted by a attack increasing item, but or like a bandit fighting type move. But otherwise, like Porygon 2 is just so bulky, so that's why it's almost always a very safe lead. The question is, how do I want to execute this? Because my opponent does have a, you know, harder kind of Trick Room component, and I think that makes this a little bit trickier. I do want to lead Hariyama still. Like, I think I am going to keep Araquanid on the bench this time around because Magnezone and Drampa are kind of essential. Leading Magnezone's slightly tempting. So I was leading Drampa, but I think I'm going to go Hariyama. Yeah, so I'm going to go P2 Hariyama, Magnezone, Drampa. Once again, Mimikyu not a Pokemon you really want to bring unless there's the Tapu Lele because it's specifically designed to kind of nuke Tapu Leles, as my opponent may be running out of time there in team selection, so we'll see. I know when we played Scott Glaza, actually, he timed out in one of the moves that we played yesterday. And funny thing, I actually played Scott like twice more when I was just laddering for fun, which was pretty amusing. But, yep, let's see if we can finally get a win streak going after splitting the last two episodes 1-1. I feel like I'm getting the hang of the team a little bit more, though. Porygon 2 Arcanine. Okay. So Araquanid would have been like a decent Pokemon to switch in here, but Porygon 2 could always have Thunderbolt. I'm also curious which of our Porygons are faster. He is going to get the Intimidate off. That's fine. My Porygon gets the download off first. It's going to be an attack increase. Let's see what Porygon gets on his end. And he gets a special attack increase. Just slightly a bummer, but what can you do? Let's see. So I could fake out his Porygon and just Trick Room. And I think that's actually exactly what I'm going to do. Sure, I'm intimidated, but I'll still get the Guts boost after this turn, and then I kind of want to prioritize knocking out his Porygon 2 before anything else, so then I can focus down the other offensive Pokemon. Arcanine's a tricky Pokemon to switch into. It's part of the reason why, you know, like, bringing Araquanid would have maybe been a decent call. He actually just goes for a Flamethrower, interesting, onto the Hariyama slot. But, yeah, that doesn't even do 50%, and I do get Trick Room up successfully, which is good. So, I think I'm actually going to knock off Porygon this turn. Yeah. Let me see what we can switch into. Yeah, so there are a bunch of reasons I want to knock off, but knock off just means that everything else on my team can hit it for harder. It also means I don't get the special defense drop, and the defense drop. Considering who I have in the back, Drampa and Magnezone, okay. I'm gonna Thunderbolt the Arcanine, so it might be in Specs Thunderbolt KO range, or just a Draco Meteor KO range. I'm gonna go for the knockoff onto Porygon 2. Really want to get rid of that Evil. I also catches anything switching in. I think if you're my opponent, you might want to contemplate doubling up onto Hariyama. If Porygon 2 does have Tri-Attack, that could be a concern. But if not, then I'll be in a really good position next turn, because I could close combat Porygon 2 safely. And that's good. We see Toxic, so that means that I'm not getting doubled up onto Hariyama. Toxic is a concern, though, because it's a pretty good counter to Porygon. But I don't mind that too much, because I will survive the turn, and I will get this Thunderbolt off against Arcanine. Doing a pretty... No, it was a crit there, okay. As we do see another Flamethrower come out. That's fine. Both of my Pokemon are affected by status conditions. And I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I did see a couple of people wondering, like, why do you want to burn your Hariyama? It's because Guts ignores the burn and actually takes advantage of it. So, I'm definitely close combating this turn. What can really switch in? I'd rather Ice Beam. I'll close combat Ice Beam this slot right now. He could have Extreme Speed on Arcanine, which is one of my concerns. And Porygon does switch out, which is also a good play by my opponent, into Gastrodon. That's fine. But a good switch, definitely. Gastrodon will take some good damage off here. Yeah, wow, that was still like 70% of damage, just insane. Let's see if it has the berry. Should be citrus. Yep, looks like it is. But I'm fine. I mean, Hariyama probably goes down here. That means I get a free switch in. Unless my opponent was smart and didn't target the Hari slot. Ooh, actually went for the Morning Sun. That's really cool. Not something I expected to see on Arcanine. So we've seen Flamethrower and Morning Sun thus far. I'm okay with that. Poison counter is obviously ticking down, which is bad, but it does mean that I actually still get to save Hariyama here, which is kind of cool. Let's see. I have Drampa and Magnezone in the back. I definitely am switching Hariyama out for Drampa right now. I could double switch, but I really don't want to switch into a Flamethrower, because that would be quite bad. So I think I'll just Thunderbolt for some chip damage onto Arcanine again, and switch Hariyama out into Drampa. Yeah. Good switch by my opponent earlier, but conserving Hariyama, even if it has like no HP, is always important, because it means you could potentially get another Fake Out. But that Toxic is definitely really annoying, so I want, like, Drampa, once Drampa comes in, it puts on a ton of offensive pressure. I really wish I got the special attack boost, because then Gastrodon will probably be, like, 2-hit KO'd by Ice Beam in this range, but, you know, can't count on much. Gastrodon actually protects, which is perfect for me, since I didn't target that slot. I'm not worried about that. And Gastrodon's not exactly a huge offensive threat, with only access to Scald. Oh, he does have Snarl, though. I mean, it makes sense, given the nature of the team. So this is obviously a pretty bulky Arcanine, which was what I was expecting to see in the first game of yesterday's episode. That's definitely a little bit bothersome. I'm at -1, I still have Energy Ball, and I can... You know, yeah, I think I'm actually going to sack the Hariyama here, because my goal is basically to get Trick Room up twice, and I don't want Porygon to... Like, it's going to take a lot of Toxic damage at this point. And I'm going to Energy Ball Gastrodon to try to just knock that out. I guess I should have... Like, I could prioritize knocking out Arcanine. Oh, he actually switches out. Good play. Maybe expecting Energy Ball. But that's fine. Download. Another special attack increase. He's probably going for a Snarl here. Which, yeah, I'm not going to survive. Oh, no. Wow. Arcanine protects instead. Okay. So that's interesting. Energy Ball actually does a decent amount now, given that he doesn't have Eviolite too. Okay, so Arcanine's the biggest threat to my Magnezone on the back, so for that reason, I am going to try to just knock out Arcanine here with a Fake Out and a Draco. Kind of going all in on this attack, but it doesn't look like my opponent has a way to deal like 50+% of damage to my... I guess there's still a potential of Garchomp in the back though, which I'm worried about. My opponent's been making really solid plays though, and playing against bulky teams such as the one my opponent has is definitely a little bit tricky. And Arcanine does switch out as well, so really good switches thus far into Celesteela. But that's also promising because it means that Porygon 2 plus Magnezone can close out this game. Or, not necessarily close it out, but... And Porygon 2 recovers. Okay, that's actually a really solid play. Like, I could have just close combat that slot. But, obviously I was expecting, like, more damage output. And what this means is now I can actually switch into my Magnezone, which will force Celesteela to stay in. So my opponent has made excellent defensive switches thus far, but I think I can pivot myself into a solid position now. Lefties on Celesteela, that's not too much of a surprise. If he has Shadow Ball on Porygon, that's like the one thing I'm kind of concerned about. And Hariyama actually survives too, wow. Let's see though. Yeah, I'm gonna switch Hari out into Magnezone right now. I kind of want to double switch here, but I don't want Porygon 2 to switch into any damage because it needs to get a recover off. This is a really good game. But yeah, I'm going to switch into Zone. And you know what? I'm just going to Draco the Porygon slot because now when I switch into Zone, I can switch into Hariyama the next turn. Hari is going to swap out into Magnezone. You just see a Heavy Slam come out, it's fine. Smartly targeting the Drampa slot. Ooh, it's probably a double up into Drampa. Yeah, good play. Tri-Attack's also not something I'd like to see. I'm worried that Heavy Slam plus Tri-Attack can knock out my Porygon too. I guess I should have protected Drampa there. Yeah. That actually would have been a better play. So, if I switch into Hariyama... No, then I'll just faint from... Yeah, so I have to bring in Porygon right now. I have to hope I can survive a double target, because I think my opponent double targets me here. Attack increase again, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna Thunderbolt Porygon 2 and Trick Room. Celesteela can't switch out right now, but if the double onto Porygon 2 actually knocks me out, then I lose the game, I think. If I survive, then I can recover up next turn and knock out Celesteela. But I'm a little bit concerned. I should have conserved Drampa. Like, I didn't want to switch into Porygon 2, so I think the play had to have been Protect there, because I really didn't anticipate the double target there, although it was, like, it made perfect sense there. And so, if I protect Drampa, then what I can do is swap out the next turn. And, yep, we're going to probably see a double target in Porygon. So that was a pretty bad oversight on my end. I think I should survive this. I'm actually faster with Magnezone, too. Tri-Attack comes out. Okay. Do I faint from poison here? Oh, it's going to be really close. Oh, this is so intense. I think I faint, right? Oh no, I do survive! That's actually huge. That's a big survival, because now I can Thunderbolt. Porygon 2 slower than me. Celesteela, I outspeed Celesteela. I'm going to... This is so tricky because Hariyama also only has one turn of burn. I'm gonna Thunderbolt Celesteela and recover here. It's fine if Celesteela protects. Do we speed tie? His Porygon goes for the recover. But that's fine, because I need my Porygon to stay alive in this game. Okay, so I do just get the knockout onto Celesteela, which is good. That's one reason why this Magnezone runs Magnepo. I know some people were wondering, like, what's the point of it? That's basically why. Wow, this is such an intense game. I, don't like my position too much, though, because of Gastrodon. If Gastrodon were eliminated, I feel like this game is over at this point. But not the case. Gastrodon is going to come in. Being locked into Thunderbolt is obviously a problem. I suppose this Gastrodon can't do that much offensively, though. But I need a way to hit Gastrodon. And he has Protect, too. If he didn't have Protect, I would feel a little bit better. Losing Drampa was bad. That was bad. I'm going to Thunderbolt the Porygon slot here. I'm contemplating switching out. Could just recover again, though. I'm going to recover. I think I've lost this one, though. I don't have enough firepower for Gastrodon. Do we speed tie? Like, I honestly couldn't tell. Because now I think I just lose the game. I risked it on the double target there. But even if he gets that double, like, nothing happens because then Hariyama just faints and then the same chain of events happen. So I think I lose regardless. Like, I could have switched Magnezone out into Hariyama. If I switch Magnezone out into Hariyama, then you just double up on... And then he just protects. I mean, I could then Hidden Power Ground, but that's not enough firepower against Porygon. Yeah, I didn't think about the endgame against Gastrodon very well. I'd have to hope for like a super fake out critical hit right now. I lose because I'm locked in, unless somehow I close combat knock him out. Yeah, I guess that's my only win condition, if somehow for some reason he like misplays and targets Magnezone with Gastrodon. But all you do is protect here. Yeah. And that's where being spexed is a problem. So, I would say the biggest misplay was I didn't consider... Like, I was really hoping to just knock out Gastrodon, and I didn't consider the late game well enough. And then Gastrodon was able to just stick around. So, the issue really lies in the fact that I did not... Yeah, I let Drampa go down too easily. If I protected Drampa that turn, like, Hariyama was pretty much dead weight at that point. So I could have just swapped into Hariyama and then closed it out there. But this was a really good game, I think, from my opponent. My opponent basically made perfect switches every time, and I didn't call them well enough because I didn't know what my opponent had in the back. Gastrodon having Protect was also definitely an issue, and just really good play by my opponent to conserve the Gastrodon, because Gastrodon was the one Pokemon really checking Magnezone, so I don't think I thought about my late game well enough. Thunderbolt does knock out the Porygon here. But obviously I lose the game since Gastrodon just beats my Magnezone. And Arcanine can just come in and use a Fire-type attack for the win. So, really well conserved. Man, that was a really good game. I really wish I got a download boost with Porygon 2. And maybe setting up Trick Room in the end wasn't the call. Like, I didn't pay well enough attention between our Porygons. I think we were speed time, but I wasn't sure about that. I'd have to double check on that. I was just so, like, caught up in the moment. Flamethrower comes out, and that'll be a knockout. Well played. Very, very well played. And this is our longest episode yet, but I'm okay with that. Like, our first two games were pretty quick, and then this third game was, like, a very nice and, like, methodical, long, drawn-out game, but a really fun one at that. So, I'm a little bit frustrated. Like, I think losing Drampa was just the biggest issue. I really needed to conserve that because it was by far the best sweeper against my opponent's entire team. And not protecting that turn was a pretty crucial misplay. I don't know why I didn't anticipate a double target knocking that slot out. So I protected that Drampa, then I could sacrifice Hariyama, Drampa would be back to neutral, and then I could try to set up Trick Room again and sweep. So that's the thing. Sometimes it's easy to get too caught up in like particular turns and you don't think about the end game well enough, and that was something that was just a pretty big oversight. That's why these games that are long and drawn out sometimes can really like drag on for about forever and really make you lose your sight. But overall, that was a really fun game, and I've definitely learned a lot. I just need to think about the end game a little bit better when the matchup can draw out for so long. And yeah, Drampa was definitely a Pokemon that was too crucial to be lost, and I just kind of let it faint for free. And after then, you know, my job was just a lot more difficult. So definitely a couple of turns I could have played a little bit better, and really well played by my opponent as well. So that's going to be it for this episode. It was our longest episode of Road to Rank yet, but 2 quick games and 1 really, like, kind of long, drawn-out game for you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, leave a like if you did, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, peace.